think we're away. Okay, managing environmental knowledge. This is a series of tools and guidelines and standards to help people in Juna understand how to manage data better. So it's tools for making the most out of our data. And what I'm going to present is just a bit of an overview. I won't go into too much detail, but these were born out of the science branch, really wanting to raise the bar on our standards of data management and data access. Lots of people, and I'm sure there's people in the room who know that we've got so many staff across the entire state here that people can bring their own processes and procedures to managing data, but that's not really effective in the long term as a corporate entity. And looking after South Australia's important information assets, that we need to get some standardisation into this, particularly around evaluation and authorisation of this data. So we've come up with a way of helping out with tools to make that happen. So these are the kinds of issues that we hear time and time again. It's difficult to find someone's data. Project winds up, no one knows where the data is, what's happened to it. I can't find it again. We get people asking, how do I do proper data management? I just stick it on my C drive and go, walk away. What do I do if I want to publish something? And they often ask that question right at the end of their project rather than at the beginning. What do I do with my collected data? I've got field data sheets. How can I get these into the database? I want to see them on the website. How does that all work? So, over the top of that, more and more we want to provide evidence-based advice instead of just expert advice, but that means that evidence needs to be available and accessible and defendable and transparent. So management and standardised management is really important. So the MEK provides these tools and guidelines to make the most out of environmental data, as we've said, ensuring our deliverables are of high quality, it's ensuring efficiency, transparency. And the last one's really important, capitalising on corporate, state and national ICT infrastructure. Everybody wants their data to go out, most people want their data to go out via websites. We can't put that data out through websites if we haven't got it sitting in these corporate structured systems. And it really needs this metadata and context information to back it up and put it into those kinds of places. So just to let you know that the MEK really sits under and is aligned with Juna's information management framework, and then these higher state government and national government obligations that we have under various bits of legislation and policies. So they, as I was just alluded to in the MDB, they help you early in a project, during delivery and auditing of the project, so that important outputs at the end wind up evaluated, authorised and then published. So we've got the planning template and other resource planning for data management tools that you fire up early in your project and understand what you're going to be dealing with. And then during delivery and audit, we've got flowcharts and catalogues that help you track your data management issues through the project. And I'll go through those briefly in a minute. On your chairs, you'll see there's a handout there, which is a bit of a fact sheet. It summarises all of the resources that are sitting there in the MEK. This is basically how it fits in with the project management framework. In the PMF, we've got these different phases of projects: planning, delivery, evaluation, and closure. And basically what we've done is we've worked out which of these MEK resources do you need at which part of the project. So people know from finance and from procurement that they have to do project management plans and they have to do procurement plans early in their, they have to understand those things when they're planning the project. And what we're saying is that you need to plan your resources for data management as well at that point. So we're pointing people to create data flowcharts, clarify your data storage, and get your information classification and issues around sensitivities for data organised in that planning phase. And then in the delivery phase, you've got QA, metadata, following your storage guidelines and preparing for evaluation. That's when you're actually doing the project, keeping your data in mind and what you need to do to keep it healthy as your project progresses. Then you've got your evaluation phase, when you're evaluating the data and you're tidying it up and preparing it for publication. And then in closure, you've got your actual publication and then release steps as well. So this kind of thing just helps people remind what are the touch points as you go through a project with good data management. Now, I'm not expecting you to read all of this, but that's basically those same phases and those same steps expanded with a bit more detail. And this is what you'll find on the iShare site. And there's links off to the specific resources that you're going to need as you go through those parts. So again, there's a couple of ways of coming at this. There's basically tools and guidelines sitting there. And as we say, not everybody's going to need to use these things in a recipe sense from the start of the project to the end of the project, although the project managers and people involved in the entire project might like to understand that completely. You can dip into these when you need them, and that's the point of this. So you can go off to these, the guidelines to refresh yourself or understand what needs to, what are the steps, and the tools and templates are there as well. So this is what the iShare page looks like, and we'll go to this in a minute. I can show you where that is on iShare. This is where all the resources are available from. And there's also a community page where we've got the repositories, you can hardly read that, for the catalogues and the charts, and we'll have we can have a look at that at another time. Now let's have a look at where you can find the MEK resources on iShare. I'll briefly go through where you can find them, then we'll open up the tools and the guidelines for a quick look at what they look like, and then the fact sheets, and you can take yourselves there and start implementing them inside your own projects. So this is the front page of iShare as it stands today, and if you go across to the business menu here on the left hand side, there is an information management section which we can get to like this. And you'll see on the right hand side we've got some of the higher level frameworks and policies and declarations relating to data management, and on the left hand side we've got the junior implementation of these frameworks and links off to their particular guidelines, etc. Down on the bottom here there's a contacts page for MEK. There's a list of people there who know about all the MEK resources and how they work. Feel free to contact them if you have any questions about how to apply these to your project. So firstly, just noting that anything you need to know about information classification and licensing, the guidelines are sitting there. Digital by design, which is how we create our IT applications. And then we've got open data policy documents here, as well as an open data release request form linked off here. Of course, the information management framework that sits over all of this is available here at this link, and then underneath the yellow leaf here we've got the Managing Environmental Knowledge or MEK tools. This first link here takes you off to the official procedure, which may be of interest to you at some point, which really talks about how it fits into the project management framework. Then we've got two ways where two ways that you can get access to the MEK tools. The second one here is simply a list of the tools and with hyperlinks off to them, and the guidelines and the fact sheets. The first link here is off to a project guide, which really shows you exactly, in a bit of a recipe sense, what are the MEK activities and resources that you'll need for those activities that are required in each of the phases of the project management framework. So what do you need to do during planning phase, during delivery phase, evaluation phase and closure phase? And these have all got embedded hyperlinks for the particular resources that you might need. This is a really good resource for project managers to get their heads around, and project staff in order to understand the full life cycle of what needs to happen inside a project. So if we go back to now the simple listing of all of these tools, guidelines and fact sheets, these are the same links that are in that previous PMF-based approach. So starting at the top of the MEK tools with the MEK planning template. This is simply a Word document, is a template. You copy this into your iShare site or your project site, and this records some information at the top here about the project itself and where your iShare location is. Then there's an important section about roles and responsibilities. What are the data and information accountabilities? Who is your information authority, manager, your subject matter experts, and your authors? And then it talks about listing out, just in a broad sense, what are the data inputs that are going into your project? Is there new data collection going on? Is it existing data? What are some of the issues that might need to be thought about?
And then what are the outputs and what are the formats of the outputs that are going to come from your particular project? Making you focus on what are the broad issues associated with delivery and storage, and also who the main audiences are for those. The next key tool that we'll look at is the MEK flowcharts. This is in PowerPoint format, and you'll see that this template, again, you save this off into your project area, but this template basically is a bit of a how-to and a guide. There's an intro, there's some example data charts, some tips and tricks about how to create them, and then some templates for you to go forward with. There's a bit of information there about what they are, and then of course some different examples about different types of data charts that have been created. You might wish to copy those or see how they've been constructed, and certainly use those as a guide. And then there's some more instructions down here in terms of step-by-step how to create the data charts. The key component of the key concept in the data charts is this notion of having working data, evaluated outputs, and authorised products. So the data charts capture these workflows, how data is combined to produce evaluated outputs and published products at the end of the day. Going back, the catalogue template is the next one. For each of those elements in the data charts, or in fact just to list out any information resource that your project might use, the catalogue template is a metadata system for that. It's simply done in Microsoft Excel. There's a bit of instructions on the front page here in this README, and you can put in some details about the project and the contact name in there, and then you go straight to the catalogue itself. Here you can list out the different information resources, and here there's a drop-down list that asks you what sort of format are each of these resources. Opportunity there for description with some keywords, etc. Then there's some information about the custodian or the authorities, storage, whereabouts these things are kept, and some linkages there. They might be links off to websites or grey literature. And then you've got security classifications recorded in that place there, and then some more information about publication if there's a digital object identifier, licensing information, whether they're updated, etc., etc. Filling these things in comprehensively may be useful for some things, or you might just like to fill in a few of those things so that these information resources are accessible to somebody in the future. They can go and see what information resources were used as part of the inputs and the outputs of any given project. Okay, the bottom two now are the checklists. These are good for project managers to make sure that everything has been checked off in terms of the steps needed. Let's just zoom in on that one a little bit further. And there's a clear delineation of the roles here. Here's the list of things that the author is responsible for. There's a list of things the information manager is responsible for, subject matter expert, and the information authority. So this really provides some rigour around the evaluation process as well as the production and publishing. And then there's a closure checklist here, which is all around at the end of the project. Have you dealt with your data in an appropriate way, and just making sure that those things have been dealt with comprehensively. The guidelines are listed in the middle here. Storage guidelines, open these briefly. These are all in a similar sort of format. Talks about the different data types, and then a bit of an explanation of the data storage system and delivery channels. And then in words, a bit more of an explanation, and it links off to any information that there might be about those particular storage systems or channels. You go through to the appendix, and there's further information linked above, take you off to all the templates and user documentation that we have for these particular databases and resources. the more, if there's any changes to those things, those links will be updated, and you'll be taken to the latest version of those resources. Evaluation guidelines is all around evaluating data sets and documents. Again, same sort of format in terms of the guideline. It talks about quality of data, fitness for purpose, how to do evaluation of different types of data. There's a peer review and approval process. There's a protocol for numerical models in the Science Model Warehouse. It talks about those working data, evaluated outputs and authorised products we talked about in the flowcharts. And then there's a handy table here, which looks at the quality indicators for particular dimensions of information that's produced in a project, whether that is governance, privacy and security dimensions, accessibility, discoverability and timeliness, or validity, coherence and accuracy, and then the final one down here, reliability. All of those are different elements of evaluation and quality that can be looked at in terms of the value of the data and information that you're producing. Data handling guidelines takes us, similar format again, through data management planning and then into sensitive data and conditional access. So there's descriptions here about how we deal with environmentally sensitive information, how we deal with Aboriginal cultural knowledge, publishing embargoes and third-party data. And there's words here as well about for putting into contracts and data agreements to ensure that IP is sound for our particular purposes, and we make sure that we get the right access to data that's produced. At the end here, there is an appendix, the diagram that talks about sensitive data handling, and that is actually in a fact sheet as well that I'll show you in a moment. Publication guidelines is the fourth guideline. That takes you step by step through how to the publishing procedure. So whose responsibility from the project team through the project advisory group to the manager to the actual project sponsor, who needs to do what in what order in order to get a published product out the door. Here's a step-by-step process to make sure that everything is covered off. So great way to make sure that we've got everything covered. Here's the publication delivery channels for different types of data or reports, and links off to those and information about how to access those, some of the external delivery systems as well. Okay, rounding out the fact sheets. This is a fact sheet that is simply the same that we're looking at here on a web page. This is just in a PDF version. If you want to print that out and give that to anybody or have that stick that up on the wall, that's a useful thing to have there. We also have a metadata fact sheet which talks about the different metadata systems that we have. Why is metadata important? Again, a PDF that you can print out and make available to people so they can understand how metadata works in the agency at this point in time. That sensitive data handling diagram, again, a one-pager PDF. You can print that out and that is useful to have lying around. Information management roles and responsibilities. Again, this is just a Word document as well, and this really spells out the way that information authorities, information managers, and subject matter experts, what their particular roles are in managing data. So very important for project managers to understand and helping to make sure that our recording of data provenance, where it's come from and where it's stored, is all sound. So that's it in a nutshell. MEK on iShare. As mentioned, if you go in through the project guide here, it gives you the different project phases, and all of those links that we've just been through are linked off inside these steps here. So it's just another way of getting to the same series of resources. This is just more comprehensive inside the project management framework.